Hello everybody, welcome back to another video. As today we got another episode of reviewing NHL teams off season so far. As today we're going to be talking about the Florida Panthers and their weird and wacky off season where they went and made a massive blockbuster move picking up Matthew Tkachuk. Their defensive core got weaker though, so it's kind of concerning, and their offensive core is pretty well built, but there's lots of concerning signs to talk about here with the Florida Panthers. But before we get into all that, I like to just say, if you are new to the channel, make sure to hit that like button and hit that subscribe button as well. It'll be very much appreciated there, boys. So let's get into talking about the Florida Panthers, and before we do as well, make sure to stay tuned for the entire video, as well as I'm going to have my bro, Perlo Wisdom, join me later on in the episode, as well as we're going to dissect a little bit more about the Panthers and get more into the team. So yeah, let's jump right into the Panthers here and talk about everything that went on with the Panthers. So yeah, like I was saying, they made the massive move to pick up Tkachuk, but the weakest part of this team right now is their defensive core, and that is without a doubt the scariest part, I think, of the Florida Panthers right now is their defensive core. There's lots of concerning signs. You know, they have some younger guys that could potentially be good, like maybe Lucas Carlson, but yet, like, these guys are not proven guys. You know, these guys are not, big potential worthy guys who could take top four spots. It's going to be kind of concerning when your best defenders are Forsland and Ekblad. It's kind of concerning, to say the least. Montour's not very good. Like, there's a lot of holes to be talked about here with the Florida Panthers defensive core. But let's get into reviewing their whole offseason and their moves that they made. So we're not going to worry about their draft, because honestly, they did not make any moves during the draft. Their draft was absolutely horrendous. They just had no higher up picks in the first or second round, so their very first pick was in the third round. So yeah, nothing really to talk about there, but let's get into the very first trade of the Florida, and the only trade of the Florida Panthers offseason, where they picked up Matthew Tkachuk in a fourth for Jonathan Huberdeau, Mackenzie Weegar, Cole Schmidt, and a 2025 first round pick. Now, first of all, I'm going to give this an automatic L for the Florida Panthers. And I know, the thing is, it's kind of an easy, like, it's almost even, this deal. But the biggest problem that I have with this deal is that they lost out on Mackenzie Weegar. I think Weegar is a guy that you did not want to lose out on. He's a top pairing defenseman, and you really did not want to lose out on a guy like Mackenzie Weegar. Just bottom line, you do not want to lose a guy like him. And basically, you lost a top-line winger in Huberdeau and a top-pairing defenseman in Mackenzie Weegar for one of the best left wingers in the NHL in Matthew Tkachuk. So, honestly, yeah, you're getting one of the best players in the NHL with Matthew Tkachuk, one of the best wingers, without a doubt. In my opinion, he came off a great season, 104 points, and now he's going to be playing alongside of Barkov. It's going to be an amazing combo, without a doubt. I think this is a huge benefit for the Florida Panthers. But the fact that they have not picked up anybody for their defensive core, and right now in Cap Friendly, they have fucking Mark Stahl as their guy in that top four, that is bad, man. That is not good at all. And you really don't want that to be there. You don't want Mark Stahl to be that guy playing in the top four. He's bad. It's not good, and it's not good to trade away one of your top pairing defensemen in Mackenzie Weegar and also trade away a first round pick. I think it was a little bit of an overpayment. Not even a little bit of an overpayment. I think it's very much of an overpayment to get Matthew Tkachuk, especially since you traded away a top pairing defenseman and a great left winger in Jonathan Huberdeau. I still see it as a great benefit here, though, for the Florida Panthers, because of the fact that they did get Matthew Tkachuk, who just came off a 104-point season and most likely will continue to be that big 100-point guy and continue to be that big play driver. So I think great move, but in the end, you still lose out in the great defenseman in Mackenzie Weegar, and I think that's a kind of hard loss to take there. So we'll move into the signings now, which they didn't do a whole lot for their signings. They just did some little ones. So we'll get into the very first one. E2 Luster-Reinen. Alright, two-way guy, will most likely play down near the fourth line, third line. But E2 Luster-Reinen, good depth guy, young, still has time to develop and room to grow. Good point producer. Plays not bad defensively. At that cap hit, you can't go wrong for him. Mark Stahl, like I said, not great defensively. Played for, what was it, the Detroit Red Wings last year. Was okay, but I definitely don't think he's a guy that you want to have in your top four, especially right now. I'm not a big fan of the signing. Moving forward, though, Nick Cousins, great signing with him. Great two-way guy, plays very well defensively, 2 years at 1.1. can't go wrong. Colin White used to have massive potential. This guy was a big point producer at 41 points and was handed that big contract. Plays very well defensively, still could be a very big guy for the Florida Panthers moving forward. Could be even a really big steal. Balsers, I really love this guy. Great two-way guy once again. Produces some great offense. And at 750K, you really cannot go wrong with Balsers, quite honestly. So great pickup there once again for the Florida Panthers. And then Chris Tierney as well. Another good little depth signing there at 750. Yeah, otherwise for the Florida Panthers, they really didn't do a whole lot. They also got Del Zotto as well. But just a lot of depth signings, a lot of entry, you know, the bare minimum signings. And quite honestly, you know, you look at the roster and you see a great, you know, top 9, right? Especially when you have Lundell down there. Balser's looking good. Colin White could potentially be, you know, a breakout player for them, I feel. But then you look at the defensive core and you see, you know, Forsling and Ekblad, that's not bad. But then you take a look at Stahl and Gudas and then Carlson and Montour, and that is just not a Stanley Cup level defensive core right there, right? Like, it's not something that you can compete with, to be quite fair with you. And everything else, I think, is quite fine. You know, the Matthew Tkachuk, this top line is going to be fucking deadly, but otherwise, I'm not very excited about their defensive core, and that is really what lowers my grade for the Florida Panthers offseason. So let's get into the grading and what I think of the Florida Panthers offseason. And quite honestly, I'm going to give this team a B. I think I'm going to give them the middle of the pack. You know, I'm not a big fan of what they did with their defensive core, to be quite fair with you. I think it's definitely, out of some of the better teams that we've seen so far, this is probably one of the worst defensive cores. It's not like the worst in the league, but it's still not great and definitely not Stanley Cup level. Like, if you're going to be fully just relying on your offense, is not a great idea. Also, they did hire Paul Maurice as well, which I still think is a very good coach signing as well for this very young team here for the Florida Panthers. I think Paul Maurice will be a really good coach for this team moving forward. But yeah, I'm going to give this team a B. Please enjoy the little interview that me and Perlo did there, as we are going to be getting more into the Florida Panthers and dissect, all the Florida Panthers moves. So make sure to enjoy that, and I will see you guys all later. Enjoy the little piece here with Perlo. Hey there, guys. Welcome to the interview portion of the video, as I got my man Perlo Wisdom to hop on me once again, as we're going to be talking about the Florida Panthers and dissecting what they did in this crazy offseason. I mean, the Florida Panthers made some massive moves, picking up Tkachuk and a few good depth signings. So let's get right into this. But before we get into that, I'd like to just say, make sure to go check out my man Perlo. Go give him a sub up. Go check out all his channels, all his socials, his Twitter, his YouTube. He's almost near 1,000, so go give him some praise and let's get him to 1,000.
48 more to go. 46 more to go after.
Yeah, yeah, we're getting close. So, well, let's get to the very first topic of the video. I think, you know, they did some small signings. There's not too much to talk about with their draft. We'll get to the smaller signings a little bit later on, but let's get into the big trade. Now, we already talked about this in the Calgary episode, but I did that with my buddy Calvin, so he had the Flames perspective. Now we're going to be giving it a little bit of a, you know, a Panthers perspective on, you know, what will this do for the Florida Panthers, as they picked up Matthew Tkachuk and a 4th-round pick, as they dumped off Huberdeau, Weegar, Schmidt, and a 2025 first-round pick. And Perlo, what's your thoughts on this deal?
The hardest thing for me is losing Weegar.
Yeah.
With that defense. They got to find a way to do that. But honestly, I do it. Matthew Tkachuk is just a unicorn of a player.
Oh yeah.
He's completely underappreciated within most of the people I talk to. Anyways, I think he's just some sort of add-on to a line that was propped up by Lindholm and Goudreau, which is far from the truth. He ran that line.
Oh yeah.
He ran that line.
Without a doubt. And he's such a great two-way player, too. And he threw up 100 points. Like, Tkachuk is just one of the best wingers, I think, in the NHL right now. And probably in the future.
For sure. He's only 24 years old. He's only getting better. I mean, he could go down as one of the best left wingers of all time.
Oh, without a doubt. Now, do you think, like, of course, this deal, you get Matthew Tkachuk, which is an absolute amazing player. And, of course, you had to trade away Huberdeau and Weegar to make it fit cap-wise. But you look at that defensive core and missing out, you know, trading away Weegar. And I don't know why Panthers fans and also Bill Zito was not a big fan of Weegar, which was really weird. But you look at that defense core, it's not very strong. And honestly, I don't really see the trade as a W. I see it as a little bit of a W because you get Matthew Tkachuk, one of the best wingers in the league. He's younger than Huberdeau, so you definitely get that. But their defensive core is a bit weaker. And, like, in this deal, losing Uyghur is such a big miss on the team. Like, what's your thoughts on that?
It really hurts. I can't spin it any other way. This is a case where you're getting, like I said, a unicorn of a player,
Yeah.
a guy who is he's a playoff performer. He provides everything in one player that you could possibly ever want in a player.
Yeah.
He's incredible defensively. He does everything.
Yeah.
And in doing so, you got to cross your fingers and hope you can find a D-man eventually down the road.
Mm-hmm.
I said I would do the deal, but man, I don't think it was an easy move, especially with Uyghur. And I don't think Zito was not a fan of Uyghur.
Yeah.
I think in the playoffs, the public perception, they saw him cough up the puck here and stuff. You know how it is, right?
Oh, yeah.
They get fans get emotional or whatever the case may be. That's what I love about underlying numbers. And it's also what I love about watching taking the whole scope of a player.
Yeah.
As a player, rather than he made a mistake here, there, blah blah blah. You know what I mean? So I don't think Zito did that. He's obviously a heavy analytics-driven person. Otherwise, he doesn't do this deal,
Mm-hmm.
right? So I think it was a very tough decision. I don't know where. That's the problem, is they don't have really defensemen coming up that are going to be able to take that spot that I can see anyways.
No, you got Lucas Carlson that's coming up the pipeline and a few other guys, but like there's nothing that's really going to take a permanent spot right now, and that's the biggest problem with the Florida Panthers. And they really didn't do a whole lot during free agency to add to that. They only really added Mark Stahl, and if you look at Cap Friendly and their depth chart, they have Mark Stahl up in the top 4, which is just absolutely atrocious, and you absolutely cannot have that. So let's get into their free agent signings, because they only made a few signings. E2 Lusharainen, 2 years, 1.5. They got Mark Stahl. They got Nick Cousins, which I really like. Colin White's a gamble. Balser's also a gamble, especially if he's going to be playing higher up in the lineup. And same with Chris Tierney. A lot of gambles with a lot of the moves. Are they trying to find like a kind of like another Carter Verhaeghe or another player that will be able to help them depth-wise, especially since they're so tied up against the cap? And do you like a lot of the moves that the Florida Panthers did during this past free agency?
I think that's sort of what they're doing, probably. I mean, they're looking for Verhaeghe, no doubt about that. But in getting Colin White, even if he's a third line guy, it's like getting a first back.
Yeah.
I personally really like Rudolph Balgers.
Mm-hmm.
He's a third line right winger, but he got him for nothing.
Oh, yeah.
$750K. I mean, that's beautiful. And one thing I got to say, although this defense, as far as the defense men are concerned, are poor, up front, they are amazing defensively, almost all three there. So they may just get away with it because of that. You know, Verhaeghe, Reinhart, Barkov, Tkachuk, that line alone, you know, can support some weak defense, at least until they can find some more. So I liked all the moves. It was a good flyer, and you can always trade them off if you have to. It gave them options. And of course, you still got Anton Lundell, who's probably going to destroy Sam Bennett this year.
Oh, yeah,
And
you look at that
spot
depth-wise for
there.
the forward core, it's deadly. Like, Colin White, if he could get back to where he was beforehand, like, you have a really good player in Colin White. Balsers showed some really good analytics two-way-wise. He's generated a lot of offense. He might be a potential player that could totally break out this upcoming season, especially if you have a chance to play alongside a Lundell or Sam Bennett as your third-line centerman this upcoming season. You could have some really good offensive depth from this team in the Florida Panthers. And that's what I see. I see a really scary team up front, but then you take a look and you see Radko Gudas and Mark Stahl as your top 4, and it's like, yeah, this is not very good, because Aaron Ekblad's okay, but honestly, Mackenzie Weegar was the big workhorse, I feel, for their defensive core. I love Aaron Ekblad, but he was the workhorse without a doubt for that defensive core throughout the season. And so, do you think there's still more moves to be done here for the Florida Panthers? Do you still see another trade? Because we were hearing rumors about Bobrovsky a while ago, maybe being retained and being traded for half of his cap. Do you think there's still another move that the Florida Panthers are going to make?
Well, if you look at their division, nobody really in their division is super strong defensively anyways, right? So they're a playoff team the way they are.
Yeah.
So through the season, you get more cap space. You know, there's a couple players fall off the vine. I think that's what they're looking at here is like down the road, they can start adding defensemen as they come up and maybe at the deadline or whatever. But they're certainly good enough to make the playoffs. And I think they also came to a realization from last year that the President's Trophy is not really something to strive for.
No.
Right? You got to be able to. Tampa Bay learned that. They learned how to balance it. They don't play like balls out every game. Neither did Colorado last year. Right? So, and I think you'll see more of that from Florida. So I think they'll get away with it. But I have to admit, I'm thankfully, as a person who does professional capping, I will be going on the overs here a lot.
Oh, especially with the way that the defense core is built, you got to go on the overs like constantly. So we'll get into the last move here for the Florida Panthers as, you know, they made a big coaching change. They fired Brunette, who did very good for the Florida Panthers, and now they hired Paul Maurice to the team. So what's your thoughts on this, and what is Paul Maurice going to bring to this team? And I feel like he's going to bring a lot of veteran leadership to the team as well that Brunette wasn't able to bring, because Paul Maurice, he's been a coach for the Whalers, the Hurricanes, the Leafs. He's won a cup with the Canes. You know, he's been with the Jets for a long time. So what's your thoughts on Paul Maurice being the head coach now for the Florida Panthers?
I like it. He will one thing he'll know is how to pace yourself throughout the year, which I think Florida really needs. He did about as good as a coach could do with that defense in Winnipeg. So he's used to playing poor defense, right? Poor defense. Now he did have Hollabuck propping that up where it's going to be a little more difficult here with blockbuster. I don't know how he's going to add into that, but I think it's a better option actually than Burnett was, because it does take a veteran coach to know how to pace a team through the year.
Yeah.
And Burnett has a lot to learn for that. I kind of figured that he was gonna be let go by how hard he was on himself at the end of the season. Burnett, that is. I don't know if you saw some of the interviews, but I don't think you can publicly be that hard on yourself and expect to get rehired.
Yeah, right.
So yeah. He's got a lot to learn. Smart guy, probably going to be a good coach.
Yeah.
But he's got a lot.
I think so too. I think there's still lots to learn with Andrew Brunette, and it'll take some time. But I think Paul Maurice, and to note, he actually did win the cup with the Carolina Hurricanes. He was let go right before they won the cup. He became the coach of the Leafs and then back with the Hurricanes again. But Maurice, I think it's a really good idea. You go with a guy that is a veteran, is going to be big leadership for the Florida Panthers. So we'll get into the last little part. What's your grade for this past offseason for the Florida Panthers? Quite honestly, for me, I think with the Matthew Tkachuk move, they lost out on that. They did some depth signings, which were okay. I liked a lot of them. The Balser moves, the Cousins move. I liked a lot of their free agent moves, but the trade I felt like was a bit of an L since you lost out on a good defenseman in Mackenzie Weegar. Of course, it needed to happen because of cap. You're still in the negatives right now, so I still feel that there'll probably still be one move for the Panthers that they need to make. So I think I'm going to give them, I'll give them a middle of the pack, a B for this one. What's your grade for the Panthers this offseason?
I'm about the same. I give them a B plus. I know that, you know, in a way they lost the trade maybe in the short term.
Yeah.
But I just couldn't. I agree with them. I couldn't find myself able to give Huberto that much money at 29.
No, especially when you could get Tkachuk at like a mill lower, and at 8 years, and he's 24 years old. That's a really, really good deal for Matthew Tkachuk, and I would take that any day. It just sucks losing a player like Mackenzie Weegar.
Yeah, that's the value. I think it was in a way it's sort of a fair trade,
Yeah,
but I think the greater value long term lies in Florida. So I got to give them the win because that, and even maybe even now, because we don't even know what Kachuk is going to be. Imagine Kachuk and Barkov together. I mean, that is
it
just
could be
mind blowing.
deadly. Really, really deadly.
Like, are you ever going to score against those guys? Like, seriously, that is an incredible talk.
Right?
I think it might be the best two-way pairing in the league.
I think so too. I think it'll be absolutely amazing.
So I give him a B plus. I think mostly that is to do with, like you said, I got to see what they add on defense.
Yeah.
Goaltending really didn't get resolved. So, Spencer Knight, is he ready yet? Is Bobrovsky ever going to find the consistency? All of those sort of things like that. So it's hard to solve all that in one off season, but I'll still just give him a B plus.
I think it's gonna. It is a hard season for the Florida Panthers in general, especially with the Yandel cap hit going up with his buyout there. So having to pay him $5.3 million instead of just the one. So it was expensive. So thank you very much, Perlo, for joining me on for another episode of this. It was very much fun. Again, make sure to go check out his links down in the description below, his YouTube and his Twitter. Go check him out. Thank you very much for watching, guys, and I'll see you guys all in the next one. Adios, amigos.